Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. In the zone, Pete Coles, Rich Sutter, back from Indianapolis. Got a little bit of a story to tell you there, folks. Going to be a good one. So we'll start it off. I'll just give everybody a little bit of what happened to us. People might have been expecting our show from Indianapolis. We're calling it the Goof on the Roof. And we just we just ran into some tough difficulties out there. Great city, Indianapolis, I thought, for the Final Four. Good spot, good venue, good nightlife, good bars, good restaurants. And, we're very critical of the NCAA, but if there's one thing that the NCAA can do is to put on events. And they really put on a great event here at the Final Four. They brought in Division II, Division III, the NIT, the All-Star Game. A lot going on this weekend, and they really, really ran it seamlessly. So as much as I get on the NCAA, I did want to at least jump off today and give them a little bit of a shout-out saying great job. Great job, because they really, really did do a good job. So here's the Goof on the Roof story. Pete comes up with a great idea because one of the hotels that they had a full bracket off the side of the hotel, which was monstrous, and it just looked really, really awesome. It was right across the street from the convention center. So Pete comes up with this great idea. We're going to go up to the top of the roof and have that as our backdrop. And I said to Pete, I still don't know to this day how they filled out the entire bracket. It's hung off of a wall of a hotel that's 20 stories in the air. 10 stories in the air.
At least that's a 30-story hotel.
Yeah, it was unbelievable, and the size of the thing was massive. So we ran into some technical difficulties that we could not get out of, so we had to scrap the show, folks, and here we are, back live, ready to give you everything that happened, though, up to that point. We had a really good show, we thought, but sometimes things get a little bit complicated. So we're going to jump off the Goof of the Roof. Really a good Final Four. Hurley versus Coach Dusty May in that final was a great setup. Pete just missed on his prediction of having UConn go all the way. He saw something a lot of us didn't. They got hot at the right time. Really, really did a good job. UConn will lose Luke Murray as a result of that. He's going to get the Boston College job, and we're going to fill you in on some other carousel stuff that happens throughout the week. And we're going to start right off in Pete's corner. Pete, jump to it.
All right. You gave kudos to the NCAA for their party atmosphere, but do you think the kudos should be given to the Indianapolis Convention and Visitors Bureau? Because they seem to be attracting a lot of events. Like, they're going for major events, and they seem to be doing one hell of a job with them.
So I can only base on what I saw from this and their collaboration with the NCAA. But I will augment your point and say Indianapolis is set up very well for that type of event. Indianapolis is centrally located, good hotel space, good the downtown parking area. That's another situation that could be amended a little, work a little bit when you have really big groups coming in there. I mean, just everything has to go into a parking garage or, go on a meter. Until this time, it's just a little bit difficult to park in downtown Indianapolis. But all in all, great city. And I will say that, yes, they are well set up there, and they did a great job as well, too. The people of the convention center, obviously Indianapolis people that run the arena, all the other stuff that go there, local television, local media. Great job. Good job all the way around by everybody. That's the marquee event of the year, and they did a good job. Pulled it off seamlessly, really. Having the threes, the twos, the NIT, all there at one time. There was a lot of things in movement there. There was a lot of things that could have gone wrong.
That was the center of the hoop world for that weekend, right?
They had it locked up. And they did I didn't see one thing that I would have said, oop, let's change that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, let's not do that again. I thought the convention center was always well set up with vendors, but the beautiful thing about the Indianapolis Convention Center is they had a full basketball court right in the convention center where the booths were set up around the basketball court, and then they had coaches coming in and doing some clinics. I saw Coach Perry from Navy, Coach Odom was in there, some really, really good stuff, and I always enjoy that stuff, so you can always keep learning. Gandhi said, learn as if you would live forever. And that's what I'm trying to do. Let's go, Pete. Number 2.
Question number 2. With the NBA season winding down, Do you see any clear favorites besides OKC Thunder? Somebody
think
coming out of
there's-
left field.
I think there's some things that are interesting. Let's talk about the East first, okay? You have the Knicks right now in a position where they could get caught from underneath. And I believe it's the Cavaliers. We're going to look at the playoff picture a little bit later, but I believe it's the Cavaliers who could catch them as a half a game differential. Cavaliers winning last night. So if the Knicks do get caught and get grabbed down into that spot, in the 4 spot, they could potentially set up another rematch with the Detroit Pistons. And that would be a really, really tough matchup, I think, for the Knicks right now because, A, the Pistons, as they were growing last year, really gave it to the Knicks in that playoff. That's when you could tell that the Pistons had arrived. But then now, them taking the entire Eastern Conference by storm this year and really setting themselves up as the dominant team. I think, as a coach, sometimes you look at matchups and you look at different things. I think the Knicks don't want to see the Pistons. And if they get dragged into that 4 spot, there's a chance they could. They were a little while ago able to eclipse Boston in that 2 spot, but they've kind of slipped and they could wind up in a 4 spot. There's about 2 games left for everybody. 3 games left. Most teams are at 80 games right now. So you got this last week, and then you're going to kick in and have that first-round playoff go. But I think that it's going to be interesting over on the East. On the West Coast over there, things are fairly settled over there, but you could see some action over there, and you have some pretty good first-round matchups coming out of there, I think, in that little play-in game. So I think that they're well set. It's ready to go. It's now time to watch the NBA in full because it's usually you're splitting your time between college and NBA basketball. Right now, you don't have to split your attention or divide your attention. Right now, you're set up in the zone right there with the NBA to take it all the way home to fruition sometime in June. Believe it or not, sometime in June. The playoffs will start. Playoffs now are almost as long as one half of the season, probably longer than the second half of the season. So let's hit question 3, Pete, but I think the NBA is going to be a little interesting coming down the stretch here.
All right, let's get into the business of basketball. The president signed an executive order that's going to try to hammer out a 5-year eligibility rule, and now the NCAA wants to go a step further and make it from when you graduate high school or your 19th birthday. Does that kill NIL, or does that kill pro players in the NCAA?
I don't think that'll have anything to do with that unless you've exhausted all of your eligibility. So if you went to the G League after 1 year of college or 2 years of college, they're still going to say you have 2 years of eligibility left. Based on the new model, it doesn't change that. Where I think, and I applaud all of this,
At least somebody's trying, right?
Yeah, I do. I think they are trying. But here's the thing. This cake has been baked for years and years and years. And right now it's going to take significant thought, significant design, and significant execution in order to bring this thing back anywhere back on track, anywhere near being back on track. Okay? I saw the executive order. I saw some of what's being bandied about from the NCAA side, which is to start on the 19th birthday and then to move off of that and kind of age qualify it, which I think that's going to, there's a lot going on here because some of these young men with all the prep school opportunities and all the opportunities to stretch yourself out there, some of these young men, and you have it in hockey, you have it in other sports too, but some of these young men aren't entering college until they're 21. 22 years old. So when you start counting somebody at 19, some of those guys are still in prep school. So it's going to have some pushback, okay?
More unintended consequences.
Yeah, and basically where it's written right now, the Trump thing, garbage.
Well, I think
garbage.
it was just to get the ball rolling.
It's a conversation starter possibly, but it's also a group of people that have no idea about this thing going, yeah, here it is, that'll solve it. It's garbage. It's absolute garbage. It takes us back to where we were, and nobody wants to go back to where we were because you were restraining trade. You were stopping people from earning a living that they. Livy Dunn is a gymnast at LSU who could earn a modeling contract, and the NCAA for years and years and years told them no. Not only did they tell them no, that they couldn't ply their trade someplace else, they also used their name and likeness. That's how name, image, and likeness came about.
Right.
Was because they were using the name, image, and likeness of former players and not compensating them at all.
Yep.
That's how they got blown out of the water, because they actually used likenesses of a guy named Ed Bannon, who played for UCLA years ago. Great player, one of the great players of the time. But they used his likeness, I believe, in a video game. And I don't know how they knew it was him, or if you put Michael Jordan's logo up, everybody knows who that is.
Right.
So if he's wearing a UCLA jersey at that time with Ed Bannon's number on it, maybe Ed Bannon's name on the back of the jersey, they certainly were violating these young people. Now, where we've arrived right now is absolute, pandemonium.
Yeah, the box is open.
It's
Pandora's
mayhem.
box. Yeah.
Pandora's box open. You know now why the NCAA fought as hard as they did to try and keep that box closed. Because right now you've destroyed amateurism. Right now you've destroyed all the bounds of fairness and equity. Right now you've absolutely layered this thing so that the big can eat little. And that's where we are in society right now too. Blockbuster got eaten by somebody. Blockbuster Video used to be out there all the time playing all those videos, and everybody had a VCR. That went away. They got muscled. So it happens. I get it. But right now, the way that it's happening is it's almost like Blockbuster muscled itself, because they're all in Division I. But now you have them carnivoring each other. Right now, portal was open on the 7th. Of course, you have now the portal announcement prior to the 7th, which gets everything going. You also know there has to be a ton of malfeasance going on right now in order for gentlemen to enter into that portal with a lock on their stuff saying they have a no contact on them, and then wind up out of school 3 days later.
Yep.
With an NIL deal, with an agent in play, with an AD, a coach, and all of these other moving parts over there, but none of them have spoken to each other about this.
And no contract gets done that fast.
That exceeds the limit of plausibility, if you ask me. They're looking for plausible deniability. I think that exceeds the plausible limits. You have to be talking to each other. I know that. I know they are talking to each other. And so you've got this whole triangulation going on with the agents being this thing that goes in between the coaches and in between the players right now. And then nobody's talking to nobody, really. Did the player have contact with them? Nope, didn't have them. Did his agent have contact with him? Yes, he did. Did his agent have contact then with the player and tell him what they reported back to him? Yes, they did. He would have had to in order to make that agreement to say, yes, I'll take that deal.
Yep.
So...
yeah, these things don't happen in a vacuum.
And this is now another unintended consequence. This is going to smoke some of the NBA draft, because you now have guys at the top of this line, Debansa, some of these other players, knowing they probably aren't going to get that same amount of money once they cross over and become a professional. Right now, they're making crazy money. Why not stay in college?
Working half the games.
What will the
like
NBA do then when all of these guys start to stay for 4 years? That pipeline of the great players that they wanted with the one and done that they created, now all of a sudden, what are you going to do? What are the schools going to do when they figure out that they're not getting the same amount of money they used to get out of this thing? The checks that got written to the schools. I saw, one of the things that Penn State, their football team, they had expenses of they had total revenue. This is the thing I've been looking for. In their football program, total revenue, 50-something million.
Yep.
Then they had the offsets in there. 28 million. That's what I wanted to know. What's your actual number? The Penn State football programs on paper is of upwards of $37 million.
Expenses?
No.
Profit. Wow.
What they're saying is we had 28 in expenses, we had 54, whatever those numbers were, it came out to $37 million in profit. Men's basketball had 100, maybe 200,000 total profit. What they brought in, they gave out almost to the dollar. They had 200 and something thousand in profit. Every other entity on this list was in the red. Every other single entity was on the red. So the $37 million that they were getting used to fund all of the other sports. That's what the colleges were doing it for. But now you're going to have to hand out, of the $50 million you brought in with the 28 offset, now you got to hand out NIL, you got to do this, you got to do that.
Half of that money's gone.
Agents are involved, so the money that used to go to the schools, not there anymore. Now, you got a young man who could eliminate his agent. You don't need him. Get rid of them. Go make your own deal with the school. Enter the portal. Call up the school. Make your own deal. Save your 20%. That's what I would tell any good player out there right now. You got guys out there now that are $1 million players, whether they have an agent or not. Why are you going to cut a check for $200,000 to some guy that you can do the work yourself? If you're a young, intelligent business major, or go on ChatGPT like Pete and I do and see if it's a good deal. Have ChatGPT or AI run through your deal. Get rid of these agents. But you know why they won't get rid of them? Because that triangulation, that early triangulation, that sudden coagulation that you got to worry about, it's out there. It's out there, and it's happening. It's being done. All right, Pete. Let's roll right into our Power 30. I did a Power 30. I only sent you the top 15. I'm just going to roll through the bottom 30 just so we give everybody an idea of where every single team is at right now as we conclude the regular season. All right, OKC Thunder. Let's go 63-16. I got Dagnall as Coach of the Year too, because they started off 24-1, a little bit of bump, a little bit of grind. But anytime you finish an NBA season with under 20 losses, you've had an amazing year. And when they say you're a repeating champion, you're coming back off of a championship, trust me, you got a target on your back. Other people are looking for you. And so for them to come through and do the job that they did, especially at 63-16, I'm really thinking, if he has enough games, it's probably going to be SGA for MVP. And if he's in there with Dagnall, he's going to be Coach of the Year. That would be my guess. San Antonio Spurs, Pete, 60-19. The West taking the number 1 and 2 spots, really doing a good job. The Spurs, there's several surprise teams to me this year. The Spurs, not a real surprise, but the level that they elevated to is a surprise. Not a surprise they're in the playoffs. Not a surprise they're in the mix. But for them to be the number 2 team in all of basketball right now, that was a little surprising to me. It only goes to show how really good Wembanyama is. Detroit Pistons, 58-22, the big beast of the East right now. That's where they're at. And for them to take the Celtics, the Knicks, the Cavaliers, and put them all in their rearview mirror, amazing, amazing job. You might have to give that consideration for Coach of the Year over there, but I don't know. Another guy you could consider, they had his whole team taken out, Boston Celtics, 54-25, Joe Mazzulla. He could be considered for Coach of the Year. I had them dead on arrival. With all those losses that they had with Jason Tatum being out, they survived. They held on. Tatum's back. Watch them. Watch them. All right, the Nuggets have climbed back into it, 51-28. They were kind of slumping right there, but they are coming off a 9-game win streak. We put together not our hot segment, but we did put together some teams that are going into the playoffs on a very high note because that matters. All right, so then you've got the Knicks, 51-28. In the 6th spot, but holding on and clinging on to that 3 spot that's in the playoffs right now because the Cavaliers, there they are at 7, 51-29, rocking and rolling. Harden is back. They play good with him. They have Harden. They have Mitchell. This team could rise in the playoffs if Harden stays healthy. Lakers, 50-29, good record for them, 79 games in. Pete alluded to some load management that might have been going on with LeBron to see if he could get through the year with the first 20 games he sat out and took him out of the award stuff segments, but maybe put him into the playoffs on a really, really good physical high note. Same thing with Luka, who's had a tremendous year, and see if they can get that 1-2 punch running into the playoffs. We'll see. Houston Rockets, 50-29. They're just kind of floating around out there. I think they're going to be a really difficult first-round matchup for somebody, second round, because they'll finish in the top 6. But in that second round, once they get through the play-in games and figure all that out, I think they're going to be a rough go for anybody that's at the top. They could get matched up right now with OKC, and that would be something to see. All right, you got the Minnesota Timberwolves 47-33, hanging around. They're going to, get into that Eastern Conference right now. They're probably going to sit and stay in the 5 spot, and then miss the play-ins that they had gotten into. We'll see if that keeps them a little healthier, a little bit more flex. But they get hot at the end of the year, this team. You got to watch them. Atlanta Hawks 45-35. This team has absolutely taken off after the Trae Young trade. This is addition by subtraction. Took off after that trade. It was unbelievable. Toronto Raptors 44-35. Hanging around. But there you see where the East is right there starting to coagulate down at the bottom. You got the Hawks, you've got the Raptors, you got the Magic. They're going to all run into that, probably into that playoff situation there, that early play-in, and that'll make for good basketball. It'll also create a really good paradigm to see who gets to step up and meet the other 6 to formulate the final 8. You got the Orlando Magic 44-36, solid team, but they're going to have a tough time in the playoffs, I think. They just don't have the depth up front that some of these other teams do, and right now, you got the Cavaliers with their group. The Knicks are playing well. Celtics back with Tatum and Brown. Man, they got it really going. And, you also got everybody over there on the West. That's good, too. So you got a lot going on. These teams that are playing in are going to have a tough time getting out of that. If they get through that play-in, they're going to have a tough time getting out of that first Elite 8 round. Phoenix Suns 43-36. Philadelphia 76ers, same record. They're locked in. They're good for the playoffs. They're ready to roll. All right, 16, Charlotte Hornets. This is where Pete's not going to have the graphics, so I'm going to move really quickly through them because these teams, some of them are in, some of them are out. We got a lot of OOPs, but I wanted to give you an idea of what the bottom looks like in the NBA because right now what you're having is when we did this list, it's one of the reasons that I did it. I had to go all the way down to 19 teams that had winning records. Usually it's a little closer to 15-15. But you go down all the way, 19 teams had winning records and 11 had losing records. You get to the Golden State Warriors, first team and the 20 spot with a losing record. And what that says to me is the bottom is the bottom.
Yeah, way bottom, right?
Really bad. Yeah, really bad. They're just creating wins for everybody else, and that's bad for the NBA, I can tell you that. All right, so you got the Hornets, 43-37, Clippers, 41-38, both playoff bound. The fact that the Clippers are playoff bound is amazing because they lost like 16 of 17 games at one point during this year. Right after they traded Harden, that team took a really, really downward spiral. All right, you got the Miami Heat, 41-38. They're in a play-in. Portland Trailblazers 40-39. They're in the play-in. Golden State Warriors 37-42. I think they're in the play-in, but I'll have to look at that. Yeah, they're the 10th team. You got Milwaukee Bucks 31-49. They asked Doc Rivers about his future. He started talking about playing with his grandkids. So we'll see how that goes there. Chicago Bulls, they were talking about Billy Donovan taking the North Carolina job. They did not take that job. Michael Malone from the Denver Nuggets took that job. But I was a little surprised to see that Billy D didn't go on there because I thought he was a little better choice than Michael Malone because he has a much more extensive college background. But I think that your UNC made a good choice there with Malone as well, too. All right, so you got the Pelicans 26-54. It gets ugly right here. Yeah. Memphis Grizzlies 25-54. Dallas Mavericks, even with the great Cooper Flag, 25 wins, 54 losses. Sacramento Kings, 21-59. Utah Jazz, 21-59. The Brooklyn Nets in third last place, 20-59. They had a 2-game win streak the other night, Pete. 2-game win streak last week, to which all of their fans yelled resoundingly, "No! No winning!" They want to tank. They want to wind up in that first spot. And
Did they play a JV team by mistake?
No, they played the Pacers and the Wizards. 18-61 for the Pacers from the Eastern Conference Finals. to 18-61. Halliburton posted on social media that he played 5-on-5 for the first time just recently. It's really eerie, but it's almost a year to the date almost when those injuries occur. That's when you get to come back. Tatum's took place in the regular season. Halliburton's was much later in the finals, game 7, 6 or 7 of the finals. And so he's out right now, just coming back almost to the year. That Achilles injury is a rough one.
I'll probably get to see him at WrestleMania. He's a huge wrestling fan.
You're going to see him there for sure. Pacers 18-61. Washington Wizards holding the bottom of the barrel, 17-62. Unbelievable. Now you'll see who's going to mix it up and see who's going to get the NBA lottery going. You'll see how that gets taken. They do that sometime soon. I think in May they'll shake it all up. All the balls will go up, and we'll see who gets the number one. Right now, the Wizards look like they're going to have a shot at the most odds of getting the number one. Finishing last doesn't guarantee you anything. It's why I never really got the tanking in the first place, because it doesn't solve anything for you. All right, here's the playoff picture. East, Detroit, Pistons, Celtics, Knicks, Cavaliers, Hawks, and Raptors. That's your top 6 in the East. That will not change. That will not change. Go to 7, you go to the Magic, who've won 4 in a row, 76ers, Hornets, and Heat. We'll see how that shakes out also about how they set it up. They don't do it Magic, Heat, and Sixers and Hornets. It'd be a lot easier if they did. They do some other format there where one team, the lowest seed team, has to play the other, and the winner of that game gets it. It's insane the way they're doing it, but that's what they do. Thunder have won 6 in a row on a hot streak coming into the playoffs, but they've been good all year. Spurs are number 2, Nuggets number 3, the Lakers 4, the Rockets and the Timberwolves fill out 5 and 6. The Rockets have won 7 in a row. The Nuggets are hot as well. They've won 10 in a row. That's what brought the Nuggets back up, because they were slipping a little bit, but they've won 10 in a row. And what a monster game they got out of Joker and Murray. We're going to talk about that in 1 second. I'll give it to you right now if I can find it. That was just the unbelievable performance by those two gentlemen. Here we go. Jamal Murray and the Joker for the Denver Nuggets. 53 points for Murray, and Joker just missed a rare 20-20-20. Okay? They're the only team to have a guy go over 50 and have a guy go 15, 15, and 15. Okay? Murray had 53 points. Joker went for 23, 21 rebounds, and 19 assists. Missed by 1 assist of having over a 20-20-20. That was in a 142-135 victory over the Mavericks. All right, let's get back to this here. So we've got the Suns, the Clippers, the Trailblazers, and the Warriors right there. Unbelievable action going on there. You can see it. It could ring. All right, so who's out now? You got the Pelicans, Mavericks, Grizzlies have lost 6 in a row. The Kings have lost 2 in a row. The Jazz, they know how to tank. They've lost 10 in a row. That's it. That's your playoff picture. It's pretty much solid right now. You're not going to get a lot of movement. Not going to get any movement from the OOPs up into the play-in. None of that will happen. That's settled right now. You're not going to get any of the play-in people to jump into the top 6 either, I believe. Okay, so Super 25, Pete. We're going to jump to it right now. This is our Super 25, final Super
Year
25
ender.
For the year. We'll get back to you really, really soon, sometime maybe in July and August, with next year's Super 25 when we get the portal closed. We get some idea of how this whole thing's going to shake out. But right now, almost every team that's mid-major right now doesn't have any players. And I'm wondering, is this going to be cumulative? Because you can sit there as a mid-major and have a good amount of money, right now to go get some players, but they just cleaned out your whole roster. And anybody who's any good is going up top, going to take the big dollars, going to take the big money. So I think this is really going to – I'm interested to see, because one of the things that occurred last year, I thought anyway, was that some of the mid-major teams were able to hold on to the players that they had in their roster. They weren't getting poached like they had been in the past. It seemed like it had settled down a little bit. Players were getting good arrangements at the mid-major level and staying there, but now that door's broken wide open again. Almost every single mid-major team is either graduation took out a couple of guys. Now you got portal guys are gone. You got 2 or 3 guys standing around in the gym looking at each other going, what the heck is going on here? You know, it's just so defeating in terms of spirit, in terms of fan following it. It's so defeating. It's accomplishing what they want by eliminating Cinderella, eliminating all the small market teams and getting them out, eliminating the teams that don't travel when they get to the NCAA tournament. Because Pete and I were walking around there, we saw a lot of Illinois shirts. We saw a lot of Connecticut shirts. We saw a lot of Michigan people, you know, a lot of Arizona people. They were all traveled out there. We saw a lot of Auburn people. I had a lot of Auburn people in my hotel because they were there for the NIT final.
Yep.
So interesting. Interesting. That's all I'm saying about it. But right now, on that mid-major level, oh, my God, that thing's broken wide open. All right, Super 25. How could you go with anybody other than the Michigan Wolverines? Dave Portnoy's crew, they just had an amazing tournament. An amazing tournament.
That's a hell of a run they had.
What a great run. I had them in the final against Duke, and I had Duke beating them. I have no idea what I was thinking about that Duke would beat that team either, because that team, once I got to see them up close several times in a row, I was like, uh-oh. These guys, when they got to the Arizona game, I thought that might have been the best game of the year, and they handled Arizona. They handled Arizona. That game wasn't that close. So they're 37-3. Dusty May's our coach of the year as well. Connecticut, we're putting them in the 2 spot because we included everything. It's not just no longer your record. It's how well you did in the tournament. Did we move Nebraska up a little bit? Yep. Did we move Iowa up a little bit? Yeah, they're in the Sweet 16. They were going, you know, to the Elite 8. You know, so definitely Connecticut 34-6. Pete's guys, they had a great year. You know, they're losing.
They also had a really good run in the tournament too.
They did. They did. They had a great year, great run in the tournament. If you look at over the last 4 years, UConn's the #1 team in all of basketball. They won it 2 times in a row. They got knocked out by the eventual champion last year, which was Florida. And now again this year, coming all the way to the final game and losing to Michigan in an absolutely great game.
Yeah.
Really good game. So we put them in the #2 spot. Love what Hurley does. He's just kind of his own industry right now. He's his own cottage industry.
Class move by Connecticut, because after the game, they did their celebration, but UConn waited on the court to give them a high five. Did the line? They waited for them to do their celebration.
You think that had anything to do with Gino?
Maybe.
You know, maybe the AD got in there and said, "Hey, no matter what happens, you know, let's close this."
But
thing
I think
up nice.
Danny Hurley, as fire as he gets, he's still a class act.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I think his whole staff is a class act.
Yep.
And congratulations to Luke Murray. He'll be leaving the staff right now, and he'll be heading over to be the head coach at Boston College. I've used this phrase with Luke myself and with some other people. I think the Boston College job is a sleeping giant in college basketball, has an opportunity, a chance to go. Let me just clarify that also. Every single program in America is now a sleeping giant. This is the reality of it. If LIU Brooklyn can go find somebody to give them $20 million like some of these other big schools are doing, they'll be right there. If the Ivy League ever starts to dispense some of the money that they have hidden up in the library shelves, up in the books up there, they'll be right there as well. So this thing could turn in a way that, you know, they're saying they're chasing Cinderella out. I'll tell you right now, if I'm a college basketball coach and they hired me at Wagner College, Staten Island, okay, I'm going to spend, right now I spend 90% of my basketball time in basketball, 90% of it. But if I'm the coach at Wagner, I'm going to spend at least 50% of my time on Wall Street, with all of the big firms, with all of those hedge fund guys, with all of these people trying to talk them into my program, trying to help them take big on, let little take on big for a chance. Give me a shot. That's what I'd be selling right now. So there's an opportunity for every single school that's out there right now to be entrepreneurial and to really hustle and to get it done. Now, that goes with some of the schools on the lower level haven't gone to NIL yet. It's coming. It's coming. Be prepared. Arizona, 36-3. Great season for them. I thought they could have won the whole thing. except they ran into Michigan. And I think it would have been an even better game had they been on the opposite side of that bracket. And you would have had them and Michigan go in the final. I think that would have been make for a great game. But UConn did a fabulous job there. Duke, 35-3. 2 great years in a row for Coach Sutter. No doubt about it. But make no doubt about this as well. They're going to hang a label on him if things don't change quickly.
Yep.
They're going to have to get to the Sweet 16 every single year, Elite 8 every single year. Those are losses if they don't make it that far. Now you get to the Final Four. If you don't get to the Final Four, they didn't get there this year. People are questioning that, especially in the fashion that they lost both of those games. The year before, they blew a lead. That wasn't quite as big as the one they blew this time, but the one they blew this time was a 19-point lead to a Connecticut team that looked like they didn't have any answers. And then they started running the Taris Reed show, and it really started getting the team going, and everything started to flow off of that. Illinois, 28-9, got them in a 5 spot. They made the Final Four. The Euro session, they've got a lot of Serbian players, a lot of players from Europe. They're actually looking, to really, really expand their profile. I think Boswell had a great year for them. They just well coached and really, really good situation. Number 6, Houston, 30-7. Really, really good year again for Kelvin Sampson. But you're finding out, and you're finding this out quick. The top of the line is $25 million, $22 million, plus whatever happens on the outside. Now, you're seeing some of these schools that used to be right there have all of what they have. Now you're seeing them show that they don't have as much as some of the bigs. Houston, one of those places right now. He alluded to it this year. He said, we're broke. Our athletics department's broke, because they don't have that huge football dollar. Basketball is probably bringing in a pretty good number there, but then almost every other sport not making any money. And so them as a department, they don't have the huge wherewithal to overcome that. They just don't. Gonzaga, 31-4, another tough loss, leaving the tournament early, but they had a great season. They had a good team, and they just are in a different kind of conference out there in the WCC. I think it might have behooved them I think it probably scared the lights out of them too, but going into the Big 12 or something like that might have helped them a little bit. St. John's, Number 8, really excited about their team, excited about Patino being at St. John's, back in Madison Square Garden, having that program get off the deck and now be relevant again in college basketball. It's good for New York. It's good for St. John's. It's good for college basketball. Iowa State, 28-9, great year. A little bit of bang up at the end. They always seem to get that little injury here and there. Tameen Lipsy had a great year. Momcilovic had a great year as well. Those guys are going to be high on the draft board. Nebraska, they are the Cornhuskers, usually known for their football prowess. Now they become a basketball power under Coach Hoiberg. Really, really great season for them. Price Sandefort, one of the transfers they brought in from Iowa, lit it up and had an amazing year for them. What you're noticing here, though, is a lot of these big schools, they're moving towards it, and we'll talk about that in the microcosm of the Connecticut-Michigan game. Let me just finish this page right here. Michigan State 27-8. Izzo, keep an eye on that. That people are talking about his possible retirement. Florida 27-8. Really good year for them. I think their backcourt kind of let them down a little bit. Iowa 24-13. Okay, so you go back into that microcosm of officiating and the game where UConn didn't draw as many fouls as Michigan did early on in the game. People said the refs were favoring Michigan. People said they were laying into it. And Danny Hurley was questioned about it in his press conference afterwards. He said the complete opposite. He said, if I could get those 3 guys for every single game, I'd be happy about it. Now, let's go into the point that I'm trying to unfold here, all right? The point that I'm trying to talk about here is so many teams have gone to having more than they've bought into the mathematical equation of this, that a mid-range shot is no longer a good shot. That's insanity, but they've bought into it. And so now many teams in the NCAA are having more than 50% of their shots come from three-point range. And when you watch that Michigan-UConn game, Michigan, if the fouls had been even in the first half, then the refs would have been doing something they shouldn't have been doing. Those fouls should not have been even, and refs do this all the time. They like to even that scoreboard out. So the coaches can't say nothing to them. Hey, look up, coach, it's 8-8. Because the minute it turns 7-1, you're going to hear from the other coach, and he's going to be pointing at that scoreboard, and refs hate when that happens. So now you got a disparity in the first half there. That disparity should have happened because you're not going to get fouled shooting 50% of your shots from three-point range. You're going to get fouled when you attack the rim and go to the basket, and that was the difference in that first half, which allowed Michigan to stay on because they didn't shoot well in the beginning of that game. Then they got hot, defended well, but UConn was able to hang around in there because they shot real well in the beginning. It kind of turned on them. They live by the jump shot, die by the jump shot thing in the second half. But also, I would just throw out one more thing here. When you take that preponderance of shots from the outside, the rebounds have a tendency to come out long because they hit the rim harder, and then the rebound hits, and instead of the center getting the rebound, it's a guard or a forward who are better ball handlers than the center. That eliminates your need for an outlet pass as well. So what I'm saying is that team now in transition is coming at you a whole lot faster than they would have been if that was a missed layup, mid-range, or a softer shot that doesn't come off the rim as hard as those three-point shots do. So you're putting undue influence on your defense as well, because in transition, once that ball comes off the rim, goes to the guard, bang, everybody's out. You're going to have a tough time stopping them from getting a good shot. So that's the circular flow model of basketball. Your offense has to complement your defense. Your defense has to complement your offense. And you can't be more than 50% really in either area. You can't be, some places are, 80% offense, and then 20% defense. And they wonder why they can't stop people late in the half or late in the game. You need to spend a pretty systematic 50-50 on both sides of that basketball so that you know what you want to do at critical junctures. Pick and roll is killing everybody right now. Danny Hurley's offense, which is a European kind of based offense, has a lot of false motion to it, a lot of different movements to it, which just move the help side defense around the floor, and then they attack where they want to get you, and it's really been successful. 15, let's go to Virginia, 30-6. All right, but again, a lot of teams have gone to more than 50% of the three ball. It's a little difficult to constantly and consistently win like that. You're going to have ups and downs. All right, Vanderbilt 27-9, Arkansas 17, 28-9. Good year for them. Really good year for them. That team, I would have loved to seen that team, with a strict disciplinarian coach and somebody really pushing them to get better. They could have really been a great team, I think. They have 5 first round. They have 5 lottery picks, not lottery picks. They have 5 draft picks on that team, maybe 6 if you count Wagner. They have maybe 6 draftable players that play on that team. Malik Ewan is draftable. Okay, now you got Acuff. He's going to be in the top 5. You've got Trevon Brazile, who should be a lottery pick. You've got Billy Richmond, Wagner, Acuff, Malik Thomas. They just loaded. I was kind of rooting for that team. Alabama, 25-10. Because I watch sometimes and I start to develop like heart pangs for certain teams, because I know that if they would just tighten it up a little bit, that team could be great. That team could show greatness. But they're constantly, so many of these programs, just the way they operate, they just don't have the ability to reach the expectation of excellence for their team, because they just don't handle things the way that they should. And it saddens me when I see that, because that you're doing such a detriment to them, your program, yourself, and it's not that hard. To get to a good way of doing things. It's really not. It's consistency. It's focus. And it's really about intensity, having your intensity about you. Tennessee, 25-12. Nate Ahmet will be a first-round pick. They'll have some other first-round picks there as well. 4 consecutive Sweet 16s for Rick Barnes at Tennessee. Texas fired him, folks. So before you fire your coach, be careful. Texas Tech 23-11, St. Mary's 27-6. Utah State, they just make coaches They just make coaches 29-7. What a great year. I kept Miami of Florida in there. I got Texas 21-15. They didn't have a great regular season, but man, did they turn it on in the tournament. They were right there. Almost, wound up going to the Elite Eight. Got way up there and did a great job. Lost to Purdue, but really, really solid job by them. Miami of Ohio, Pete loves these guys, so I put them in 32-2, and they also got stuck with a play-in game and wound up doing that. Really, really good job. Here's what we're talking about a little bit about. The algorithm has collapsed. All right? You have this team, Miami of Ohio. They went 32-2. I get they had non-division ones. A lot of teams have non-division ones. They had non-division one opponents. They didn't play the strongest schedule. But they're 32-1 before they went into the NCAA tournament. There was a lot of smoke about them not making the tournament. And had the NCAA committee done what they've done to so many other people here, but they didn't want to take the heat for smashing Miami of Ohio because Miami of Ohio's metrics numbers were not that good. But they put them in anyway. But then they won. And so they did a good job. High Point goes in. They have 86 and 87. High Point and Miami of Ohio. Both won NCAA games. High Point beats Wisconsin. Okay? 31-5 for High Point. Now, all of these teams were listed in their, Ken Palm, Torvik, all of these teams were listed above them. And this is what boggles my mind. I'm looking for that last piece of information I have, but I don't see it here. All right, but here's where we go. Syracuse, 15-17. 15-17. They stunk.
Yep.
They have 83. They're above Miami of Ohio?
How?
In what universe?
Right.
Georgetown, 16-18, 76 on the Torvik. How are they above High Point? How are they above a team that won an NCAA game? Your algorithm collapsed, bro. Providence, 15-18, 70. LSU, 15-17, 68. Come on, man. I mean, it's crazy.
It's ridiculous.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And there were others in there that I wanted to give you, but I'm having trouble locating it right now. I'm sure it will pop up.
That's still ridiculous, though. It's absolutely you have to look around and look at what's going on around you sometimes and say, the math doesn't add up. I might have to override the algorithm.
Yeah, but there's no way around it now. These guys that do the algorithm, they're not going to step off and say my math is awful because it doesn't present an accurate picture. Those guys, Ken Palm, Torvik, Net, all of those guys did exactly what they were supposed to do. They put the algorithm together, and it's beautifully written for the Power 4 conferences, the Power 5 conferences. It's beautiful for them. We have the same thing in Division 3. I'll be in a game, okay? And I have we use what they use what's called a Massey rating with us. They have some other ones. The NCAA does it. There's a regional ranking. All of this stuff. Okay, I'm in the 160s somewhere. We win on the road by 20 points. Mm-hmm. We went to 170. We went down. Now, if we lose to any one of the teams on our schedule that they think is below us, we get destroyed. And I mean destroyed. The teams up top, they're losing guarantee games. They're losing money games. And again, you're judging a fish by how well it can climb a tree. You're not having a solid metric here, and they know it. All right, let's get into the carousel a little bit. Holy smokes, did this thing spin ferociously. And there wasn't really a trend. Adam Nelson, the year before, told us the trend that he saw was you're going to see some NBA people coming in. Now, North Carolina hiring Mike Malone kind of does lead into that, but you saw a lot of assistant coaches get hired this year. A lot of Division I assistant coaches get hired this year. And me, I'm always of the frame because I know what I went through in my own coaching journey, my own coaching career. Being a head coach for the first time and having it happen on the Division I level is really difficult, really hard. And there's going to be some people that can do it, but that's why you have the majority of these firings going on every single year until St. John's just swallowed their tongue and hired Patino because they're a Catholic school and they have Catholic traditions that they exist and live under. And to say that Mr. Patino might have been on the other side of some of those Catholic traditions was fair to say.
Yep.
But they bit the bullet. They hired him, but because they had hired 4 or 5 in a row that were absolutely terrible hires. And so it's not the program that's really going down. It's the administrators and all of the money people who never dribbled a basketball in their life are now making all of these calls. And now you know why there's one half of Division I basketball players are in the portal right now. Over a half. And with all the coaching changes, you had 50 or 60 jobs change hands on 365 cohort. That's 20% of all the jobs. And you think it's just because it's competitive? No, it's because you keep making the wrong hires. And there is no system of seniority. Okay? I'm at a Division III school for 28 years. No Division II schools even called me. No Division I school even calls the Division II coaches by and large. That's not part of it. But if they started to move people up who had success and moved them up through the ranks as head coaching experience, and when you have these guys who are at the big power conferences and they make really good money and they look really good paying guarantee games and having a home differential that's 20-10, where you have 10 more home games than you have, you get a really faulty metric. And that's why you have all of this that ensues, all of the firings that go on. And some of it is just other schools, these lower level schools, absolutely just using their programs as ATM machines right now. One of the things that might have slowed the carousel down is the fact that right now, okay, Carolina's smart to hire Malone because he didn't have a buyout. He didn't have a job. The Nuggets fired him last year. He was sitting out this year. So to wind up with a North Carolina job is pretty fortunate, but they didn't have to buy that out. Okay? But let's go to Providence, who hired a guy from South Florida, Rob Hodgson. Okay? Hodgson had a buyout from South Florida that Providence had to pay. Providence also had to pay a buyout to Kim English because he was their former coach. I don't know, 12, 16 million. So what was the buyout for Hodgson at South Florida? Probably 2-3 million, maybe 4 million. Let's cut it at 4. But then you had to give English 16. Now you're at $20 million. You haven't paid your NIL bills yet. And you also haven't taken care of the contract for your new coach. Not only did you have to give Hodgson $4 million to disappear from South Florida, you also had to now give him a new contract of $4 or $5 million a year every single year for 5 years, another $25 million loaded on top of that. So that's where these schools are at. And so you're seeing why we thought that guy would get fired. Well, they didn't want to fire him because they didn't want to get into a $30 million scrum.
They couldn't afford the divorce.
Little boy blue. They needed the money.
Yeah, they couldn't
afford the divorce, and they had to put it elsewhere. Got to put it in NIL now. You got to put it over there. So what they're saying is we can keep this guy. If we can just buy better players, we'll be okay. Who knows? All right, I got 10 for you. All right? North Carolina, they had Hubert Davis. I loved Hubert Davis. I understand what Carolina's doing, big business now, and we want to get into it, but that was a little bit rough. When you saw his one-loss record of 125-54, you were like, wow. They had fared very well in their big marquee matchup against Duke. They'd fared very well. Had a great run this year with Caleb Wilson. Could have done some damage, I think, in the playoffs. I don't think they lose to VCU. But, again, they're looking at a 19-point lead, another 19-point lead in the ACC that evaporated into thin air. They hired Michael Malone. Michael Malone was of the Denver Nuggets. championship Denver Nuggets and had some issues at the end of his tenure with the Nuggets. They wound up firing him. He's been out. And I smell Kenny Smith on the sidelines here because this has got a little bit of a CHSAA bump to it. Michael Malone will take over as the head coach at North Carolina. Now, you go North Carolina, okay? Here's a couple of things that went in play there. Number one, you had to buy out Hubert, no question about it. You also had to probably guarantee Malone that you would have a higher NIL number than Hubert did in order to get him to take that job. So you had to goose it up on that side. Malone came in with a really, really big contract. He won a national title in the NBA, so he's got that cachet. Lawyers come in, the agents come in. He's probably getting $7-8 million a year. You know, probably it's $40 million deal, somewhere in that range. Carolina loaded up. You know, they loaded up, and they're serious about this. Arizona State, this is an interesting one. Bobby Hurley was the coach at Arizona State, got let go. They hired Randy Bennett, a guy I think is a really, really good coach who was at St. Mary's for many, many years in the conference with Gonzaga, Mark Few. Another guy who gets bounced out of the tournament pretty early, pretty readily, because he just doesn't have the same horses that everybody else has. Interesting to see Randy Bennett land at Arizona State. That was interesting to me. Butler did it. Butler had Tad Mata. They were saying that he was going to come back. And then all of a sudden, he disappeared. Became an ambassador, a goodwill ambassador for the program. Well-respected coach. Great guy, from what I can tell. They brought back Ronald Norrad, who was the point guard for Brad Stevens when Butler made that run all the way through. Be interesting to see what type of staff Ronald Norrad puts together. He's coming back from the NBA as a scout. Boston College hires Luke Murray. I like this hire. I like Coach Murray. I like the hire. I like Boston College. I think they're a sleeping giant. Georgia State hires John Cremens. John Cremens is the nephew of Bobby Cremens. Good family, good people. We wish John all the best at Georgia State. That's a pretty big job. Arkansas Little Rock. We bring this up only because Travis Ford took the job. People from UMass lore will remember Coach Ford. He's back at it after being out, not just one, I think, out for a couple of years. He was at St. Louis. So I don't know how long he's been out, but I think 2 or 3 years. He's going to Arkansas Little Rock. NC State, this was one. Man, if you hold a snake in your hand, don't be surprised when it bites you. Okay? Will Wade was one of the guys caught on the wiretaps. Really the only coach who bore any penalty from it. His penalty was to go to McNeese State, probably at $400,000 or $500,000 a year, $600,000 a year. Not that big a penalty. After a little bit of time there and good stuff, McNeese State goes to the NCAA tournament. They turn out, and NC State hires Will Wade and brings him back. Now, I got no problem with Wade being brought back because they made him a scapegoat on the wiretap thing, and everybody was doing it. And now you're legalized marijuana, basically, and you want to, not take the old guys out of jail. And basically, you legalized what you're doing here as far as loading up bags with cash and giving them to recruits. Now you're loading up bags with cash and giving them to recruits legally. Well, get Will Wade out of jail. Get all those assistant coaches out of jail. Get everybody back on the floor then. Yep. That's where I'm going. But Wade goes to NC State for 1 year and leaves them high and dry and goes back to LSU where they fired him. You can't write this stuff up, man. It's unbelievable.
It's like a soap opera.
It really is. Justin Gainey, former NC State player. He was an assistant for Rick Barnes at Tennessee. This is one I'm shaking my head because he's never coached at all. Ever. A head coach at all. And now you're giving him one of the biggest jobs, one of the 50 biggest jobs in the business, and saying he's going to be okay. Now, John Shire was one of those. Jai Lucas was one of those. They took him to the top level. Now, with NIL and all that other stuff, it might be a little bit easier, but NC State isn't exactly the blooming rose that it once was. So I thought they would go with a guy who had a little bit more experience. I thought the guy from High Point was a good choice for them. I thought maybe, the guy from Miami of Ohio they would look at, but who knows?
Didn't NC State really want somebody from their program? Wasn't that the big thing with NC State?
Yeah, they were talking. That's Gainey. He played there.
Yeah.
You know, they wanted to bring somebody home, and again, you know, that's what happens after. So much of what happens after this is when you get snake bit.
Yeah.
You know, get snake bit by we need somebody who loves our school and won't treat us like a like a bus
Revolving
stop.
door, yeah.
You know. All right, Pete. I got about 30 seconds, I think here. Providence takes on Brian Hodgson. And they got Kim English out the door, Hodgson in. Big money, exchange hands. It better work because their fans are rabid. Syracuse takes Jerry McNamara out of Siena. Had a great run, up by 10 on Duke at halftime. Pushed him into the Syracuse job. I think he'll do okay. But Red Autry and Jerry McNamara were on the same staff for Jim Boeheim. So they just fired Red Autry, who was on that staff, and then brought back Jerry. Jerry had been at Siena, done well. But those two guys were on Boeheim's staff, and I just wanted to make that mention. Here's one. Cal State Los Angeles signs Michael Cooper. It's a Division II school. He's formerly of the Lakers. You know, great Laker player with Kareem, with Magic, on those championship teams. Interesting. I really thought that was pretty interesting. I'm going to leave you one last thing. Pete, the women's basketball portal is popping.
Really?
When you looked a year back, you would see maybe 15, 20 names in there. They're popping now. Popping. There's over hundreds of them in there right now in the women's portal. This thing is spreading like wildfire. Folks, great to be back with you. Sorry about the goof on the roof, but we're here now. We're going to take this all the way through, home to the NBA playoffs. Hang with you in the summer and get ready. Draft is coming, and we love that. Pete, we'll see you next week in the zone, baby.